the purpose of this video is to review the pretest. So first, let's start out with question number 1 here. This is just sort of a basic question about the normal distribution, where mostly I'm just looking to see if you're familiar with the basic segments of the normal distribution. So the answer here would have been that 68% of the observations will fall within plus or minus 1 standard deviation. If this was a bit of a struggle for you, there's a video located in my arsenal of videos there on Blackboard, one of them called the normal distribution, and it will clear up any problems you have here. But this is kind of an important thing to know, knowing the various widths of each of the standard deviations with respect to the normal distribution is pretty important. Related to that is this one here, the WISP-R test. And in this question, I'm basically asking you how many standard deviations away from the mean is 115. And since we've got basically 100 is the mean and the standard deviation of 10, and this person scored 115, then we would set up the equation as 115 minus 100 divided by 10. So we compute this number, we get 1.5. And the way we interpret this 1.5 broadly is that our observation falls 1.5 standard deviations to the north of 100. Basically bisecting the difference between the first and the second standard deviation. So the question is the question that is posed in this problem is, what is the chances that someone would score 115 or higher? So the question is asking for this area over here, which we know sort of by process of elimination that from the origin to the midpoint is 50%. We know this part here, if you knew the question above, you knew that this part here is 34%. So now we're up to 84% right here. Going out to that second standard deviation, we're now out to about 97.7%. So basically our observation sort of falls in between that 84 and 97%. So we can look that up on a Z-chart, and if we look up 1.5 on a Z-chart, you get about 0.933. However, I didn't give you a Z-chart, so you had to sort of use your process of elimination powers. So we know that it's somewhere between 84 and 97. And so then when we look at our answer choices, remember we're only talking about this part over here, so we're not talking about the whole 92%. We're talking about just 1 minus that, right? Because we only want to know the chances of earning 115 or higher on this test. So we go back over here to our answer choices, and about 8% is the closest answer there. It isn't precise because you didn't have a Z-chart, and I didn't expect you to do anything with precision, but just kind of take an estimated guess. Then we'll move on to number 3 there, and so number 3, actually there's 2 right answers. As x increases, the corresponding y will decrease, so that's going like this. As x increases, that's always the horizontal axis, then y is apparently going down, so both A and C, I guess, say the same thing, so either one of those would have been fine. In order to summarize qualitative data, which chart should be used, so the histogram, the scatter plot, the OGIV, those 3 are all used with data that's not qualitative, so the only real answer here would have been this pie chart. And that, we do cover a lot of that in Chapter 2. And then here for these questions, this was some manipulation of Excel that I wanted you to be able to do. So I'm just going to open up an Excel spreadsheet and show you some just basics about manipulating Excel spreadsheets that you just might want to watch if this was difficult for you. You know, if it took you more than 5 minutes, then you probably want to watch this next segment. Okay, the first question asks you, what is the average of all the SIC codes? So here, what you're going to do is, you should be able to just slide across like this. You don't, the data is locked over here on the left, so you don't have to worry about losing the title. And we're interested really here in this line number 9. And if you go into this box here, you click on an empty box, and you go up here where it says auto sum, and you hit the down arrow, you can say average, and then just hit return, and it will give you this 64.8. Now, there's a lot of other ways you can do that, but I do think that is the easiest way to do it. Then the next question says, across time, which industry has the highest average productivity index? So then what I really was hoping you would do is take this box and double click. See, there's a little box right there at the bottom. You want to just double click on that, and it will give you the average for all of the industries. Now, these we're going to delete because there is no industry there. There's just nothing, so we're going to just delete those away. But then we can kind of look at those quickly and see, oh, it's this one here, leather and apparel, which is quite surprising, honestly, to me. But anyways, this is the one that's done the best. So the industry would be apparel and leather, and it's 244, the average cross time. So that was that one. And then it says to look at the food and beverage tobacco products, what tool might we use to explain the relationship between time and productivity? So whenever we want to look at time in anything, we are going to use a scatter plot. I mean, I hate to give out clear absolutes, but really that is pretty much in this class, that's what you'll do, is you'll use a scatter plot. So let's do that. So I'm talking about tobacco products here, which are right here. And I'm going to hit the tobacco products, and then I'm going to hold the control key down on my keyboard, which you can't see, but I'm holding it down. And I'm also going to hit this line number 4, which has the years. And then I'm going to do Control C, which is copy, and I'm going to go to a new sheet here, and I'm just gonna click right there and do Control V, which just copies and pastes it into here. But because I want to make a graph, I want to transpose this data, so I am gonna Control C again to copy it, click in another spot and right click, and I get this choice here to transpose. See it right there? And now all my data is going up and down, which is what I need in order to make a scatter plot. So now to make this scatter plot, I highlight my data like this. I'm not going to include the average there. And I just say insert, and I go up here and I find scatter plot. And you can do it like that, or you can do it with a line, whatever makes you happy. And because I left the title there, it already gave me the title, so I don't have to really do anything to it. There's always adjustments you can make, but this was perfectly fine. So here we've got our scatter plot, and we have the relationship between X and Y. Then it says create the graph, which we did that, and then it says label the X-axis with the years and Y with the industry classification. So we can do this by going up here and changing our layout of our chart. Here it gives us some different options. So here's just one of the options. Now I'm not too keen on this, although I did not care if you had this. I would just delete it, but there, it's gone. But what I wanted was this, because I wanted to label the axes. So here we've got sales of food, beverage, and tobacco. And then down here we have years. I just think it's a useful thing to know how to label the axes like this. So that would have helped you there with number 8. And then I asked you to print off your graph and portrait orientation with the graph on the bottom and the date on the top. So What I really wanted you to do was something like this. Take this and take your data, and you can couple it up together, so you could leave it running this way if you wanted to. Insert in some lines here, and make this a little wider because it's can't really read it. And I don't know, maybe it can go to 1990, and then delete all this and put it back over here, and then maybe bring these last few back over here. And then now we have our data and our graph, and we can print it on one page. Now these data that are here are tied to this graph, so in that case the easiest way to do this is to copy this thing and paste it over here as a picture, because now I can delete this, and I can delete all this data and print it the way I had asked for it without losing my graph. Otherwise I would lose my graph. And then if I was really being persnickety, I could get rid of all of these lines here. It didn't like that, I guess. And then it just puts them back the way they were. Now what I'm going to do is, I asked you to print this off in either landscape or portrait, I think. So now I'm going to highlight my area that I want to print. And I'm going to go up here, page layout, set print area. And then it gives me these little dotted lines where it's going to print. So I can see that it's a little wide for a page. But I can also make these columns just a little skinnier. I don't want them to be so skinny I can't read the letters, the numbers, but I can make them a tiny bit skinnier. So now, and I can also make this, merge these cells and wrap it, so that now, see how it doesn't make it quite so wide, and I can make this skinnier as well if I wanted to. I mean, these are just various options. Now I highlight it, I say I want to print it, go here to page layout, set print area, and hit print. Still going to be a little wide, especially for this orientation, so let's just make it landscape. And to be sure, we'll say fit on one page, which I think it does anyways, but just in case we want to fit it on one page. And so see there, now we can see it. It's the letters, the numbers are all big enough, and we have our graph on there as well. So that would have been one possible way you could have done that. So I hope this helps. Just sort of clear up any questions you had about the quiz. Bye.